I went from zero to $100,000 a month in sale in less than 90 days. And we just right place, right time, profitable, still had our real estate investing company going at that time for a while. But I mean, we hit the ground running. That is not the case for every founder. What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Real SaaS Podcast. I'm your host, Jesse Burrell. I am the CEO and co-founder of Batch Service. We've done over $150 million in software sales since 2019. And I am bringing on innovators, disruptors, huge guests in the real estate SaaS space. And today I have a good friend of mine, Stephanie Betters. How are we doing?
Hey, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you for coming on today. We have I would say became pretty close friends pretty quickly and definitely vibed when we met at Collective Genius, about a year ago now, right?
Yeah. Random breakfast.
Random breakfast with Casey Ryan.
Yeah.
So today I think we have a lot of fun stuff to talk about. We're both in the property technology space. I'm more leads driven. You're more of a CRM, but we overlap in some spaces. So I think this is going to be a fun conversation. We're also at very different journeys of our businesses, and you've taken funding. I've been bootstrapped. I think we have a ton of stuff to talk about. Before we dive into the details, give the audience a brief, summary of how long have you been a SaaS founder for, and I guess what got you into it, and touch for a second of what you did before.
All right. So Left Main REI is our SaaS company. It's like you said, it's a real estate CRM and data house, specifically built for investors. We have a couple adjacent markets that we do serve too, which is commercial and self-storage investors and some retail agents as well. But 95+% of what we do is for real estate investors. That I founded this company by myself in January 2020. So we are a little over 5 years in, almost 5.5 years in.
Nice. Congratulations.
Thank you. Before that, I was running a real estate investment company with my husband and another partner. That company is now 11, almost 12 years old. And that's kind of what got me into this. I was trying to solve problems for my own company. And we ran into issues with systems. And
sounds like a familiar story.
Yeah, very long story short, got real pissed and decided to develop a solution for us, and it kind of took off from there.
Awesome. Yeah, I didn't even know that you and your husband had a real estate investing company. I thought you told me you used to be an ER nurse. You never gave me the nugget on. That's why I was so confused on. I'm like, how did she figure that? Like, how did she get into this?
Yeah, before that, I was and still am a nurse practitioner. And I was an ER nurse, I was an ICU nurse, then I went to NP school, and I got a job working in cardiothoracic surgery here in Charlotte. And I did that for a little over 10 years and kind of semi-retired, right, with growing a real estate company and a SaaS company. But I still have a huge passion for hearts, and that's kind of why we were talking about, our kids and stuff. And yeah. I tend to find the hearts out there, and I can't help myself.
Yeah, that makes sense. You were one of the first people I called when I found out my daughter had a, heart defect. So, you were able to let me know, like, give me the truth. Like, hey, it's going to be a journey, but, doctors and surgeons are pretty darn good right now. So yeah. Luckily she's been doing pretty well so far. So again, thank you for everything on that end. Yeah. But this is not a podcast on hearts. So let's dive into it, because this is the first question I really like to ask guests. Is very different for each person. And so let's talk about product market fit. Like, we found product market fit at Batch immediately. I went from zero to $100,000 a month in sale in less than 90 days. And we just right place, right time, profitable, still had our real estate investing company going at that time for a while. But I mean, we hit the ground running. That is not the case for every founder. What was your case? What did that look like for you?
Yeah, I think it's pretty similar. We had product market fit essentially right out of the gate, because I think probably because we had our own companies, right? Like we are the customer. We understood the customer and
Yeah.
what they needed. So I would say the same thing right out of the gate, product market fit. But we did in the first year really need to adjust our ideal product market fit because
Right.
there's a lot we could sell people software, but we got into pretty quickly like who's going to churn, who's a good long term fit, what are we the best at, So we still tweaked it that first year and learned some lessons after launch, but we went to we made our first million within 6 to 9 months, I'd say, something like that.
Yeah. So that was
Fast.
fast.
Yeah. Breakneck. Break everything fast. Yeah.
Because I see, our the wholesale real estate investor agent community is pretty nichey. So I feel, a lot of people are kind of really trying to solve their own problems, but I've met a few people that kind of were in the space and kind of did, wholesaler investing, and then kind of have always had that software or that engineer brain or wanted to create a SaaS product. And I feel like if you're not doing a ton of deals, you really don't get it, like, for the holistic picture. And I've seen, a few people fail on that side of things as well, because I think they're just trying to be, a SaaS founder, and this is a space that they picked and kind of get the real estate investor. But when you're doing, millions of dollars of transactions, what works, what doesn't work, what breaks. Because we fuel a lot of the real estate prop tech companies. So I get to talk to a lot of different people. I
Yeah.
get to understand their businesses, as our sales guys do as well. But I come into a lot of it, and it's someone that's a really good operator and someone that's willing to invest into the product properly. But I think the most important thing is someone that really did the business at a pretty high scale, because it shows that they could build another business. But I do want to get into how different those are, because I see a lot of people that try and do that. Our successful real estate investors try to get in the software side. They are so different of businesses and sales cycles and
Yes.
people that you're hiring. And it's way more expensive than I think people originally think. You could create some, MVP product pretty cheaply, but to go, battle against, established businesses now, I think it's even tougher than ever. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, so first of all, I think pain is a gift, right? So like growing a company that you're serving or that vertical that you're serving, the pain that you feel like legitimately helps, I think, create really great product. So I think that's a given. And like you said, I think you can develop product without that intimate pain of trying to run a business, but it's harder. I think we have a benefit from having gone through that. But you're dead on. SaaS building a SaaS company has been wildly different than building a real estate company, and I think kind of the core things that stand out is speed, like the speed of which a SaaS company grows or can grow was well beyond. It's like 100x what our real estate company did. So things come into place really quick when people buy product versus this transaction. It takes 30 then 45 days and like I don't know. I think it's slower. I think those companies grow potentially slower, and SaaS is very, very fast. And then different metrics make sense. Now you're thinking instead of transactional volume and transactional profit, you're thinking of enterprise value and how to build a company that's worth something, that is sellable, and that continue that addresses customers in a different way. One with buying a product, the next with growing them, and there's just different metrics involved and different team members. So what helped me make that transition was just really a core focus on building great systems internally, like at the company level, not necessarily product level, but our company had great systems, and recruiting people who were way smarter than me. Like building the team was critical. So, and I think that does apply to real estate too. Is a great team, but going out and recruiting folks.
Yeah, but the difference, I would say, because obviously I owned a real estate investing company too, is when you're the owner, you're typically the smartest person almost in every department. In SaaS, it's so specialized. You're like, my job and your job as CEOs is to find people that know how to do things that we haven't done,
Yeah.
and that also have been a part of scaling, because this is the first thing that we've scaled, and you could scale SaaS a lot more than monetarily wise than a huge real estate investor. Like the biggest I know is doing 20, 30, 40 million. That's the biggest in the country. Biggest software companies doing billions or trillions now. So it's very different. And then the other thing that I notice is you're selling on a real estate investing company one transaction to someone and talking them into why you're the best. In software as a service, you're having to sell them every single month to continue to pay you, and the type of value that you have to give is long-term value versus a one-time value. And that's the biggest difference I've learned, is because you're looking at the funnel very differently. Getting them to sign up, or getting let's say someone to do a transaction with you on real estate, it stops there. And then once that transaction has happened, or that first transaction has happened, for most real estate investors, that's done. Some people have multiple properties, but that's a very, very rare case. You're having to month over month over month over month show how you're innovating the product, show how you're better than this new competitor that came out. It is the journey of the customer is just getting started when you acquire the customer, versus basically ending in the real estate investing side. And that was the biggest difference in that I had to figure out and learn, is the funnels are kind of different or pretty similar on the front end, but after that first payment's made, that's when you're just getting started. To be honest with you.
Yeah, how do you keep them, and then how do you help them continue to grow and adapt more things that you roll out, get stickier in the product, more engagement with the product? And it's a totally different metric that is introduced in the SaaS space.
Agreed. Okay, let's talk about, I'm bootstrapped, you're funded. Give me one or two benefits, one or two drawbacks. I will do the same and see how we overlap. I'll let you start here.
Yeah. So I think you should bootstrap as long as you humanly can. I think being bootstrapped is the most ideal scenario. We were until last year. So we bootstrapped just before our 5-year anniversary. We had a seed round. We raised with a safe note round with angels, and then a small and kind of it's an angel fund. So technically it's a fund, but that fund is with angels. And that was my first experience pitching and raising, and really the need for raise. And the reason for that is we're developing a new product line, and it was going to take a couple $1,000,000 for me to be able to develop and launch and go to market with that product line. And I was concerned about weathering that storm from a cash flow perspective, being bootstrapped. Not necessarily because you can't, but because you can't put the chips on the table. I couldn't put the chips on the table to do it properly and be conservative with cash flow at the same time. And that's kind of I think the con of being bootstrapped. Every profit matters. That's all you have to invest is your profit. So
Right.
if you have a big long-term product that you're developing, it's not going to bring in cash for a while, right? Like Left Main Genius, which we're rolling out product line by product line. I knew this was going to take a full year and a couple $1,000,000 to get to the point of all go to market, all product line go to market. And I wasn't willing to sacrifice my margin, like my operating cost margin, having cash in the bank and like being solvent. And if anything weird happens with the economy and like there's just an election, I just felt there was a lot of variables there. And so if I raised money, I knew that I could put those chips on the table confidently, do the move we need to do, like make the full move, not like the tiptoe move, right? And like go after this timeline in the market. I felt that this product needed to go now because it's an AI and data product, and time is of the essence. So I felt like we had to do it right, from the get go. So therefore, I went out and raised a seed round, which was great. It was a terrible experience. It sucks raising money. Like I've raised a lot of private money for the real estate investment space. This is totally different. It sucks.
For sure.
So like that's why I say like don't do it unless you have to do it, because it's very distracting. people don't get you, and it's kind of like a rejection. You get rejected, right? Really, like, I don't get real estate. Like, dang it, you're just the wrong person to talk to. I don't know, but it ended up being successful. We oversubscribed what we initially went out to raise because we
Yep.
had great partners come to the table. Like, yes, let's do this. And then shortly after, I got approached by a really strategic venture capital fund that's here in the southeast near me. That was like, hey, you worked with our angel fund. We do a lot of deals with them. We see what you're doing. We want to be a part of it too. And so I'm just about to close our priced series round. So it's called a series seed because it's our first price round. But
Hmm.
that's been a whole nother experience working with venture capital and that level of corporate lawyers that dig up every freaking possible spreadsheet you've ever created in your life, but we're just about to close that. So, long story short, I felt that was the proper move to make for growth for us, so we could actually go out and grab what we needed to grab.
So you obviously believe in what you're doing in the vision of the AI and the machine learning, and we
Yeah,
work together on that as well, which is fun. Um, and
yeah,
I guess you're saying is I don't want you have a bunch of people that work for you. You're like I have a big bet. I believe in my big bet,
mhm,
but if economy shifts or this happens or that happens, I also don't want to make this bet and bankrupt the company. And that's really why you went in there and raised the money to make sure it's like, hey, I don't want one bet to jeopardize the company's future, right? So let me go raise the money, let me have some dry powder, and really do this the way I want to and get it done faster. Is that was that kind of your thought process, or am I off there a little bit to some degree?
yeah. I mean, for the most part, I think you nailed it. The thing that I'll say is what I really weighed that against is the risk. And I think, we were an established company, revenue, cash flow positive, like proof of concept, right? Like customers that grow and love us. And what my risk was either not growing or, sorry, I should say growing slowly or not growing as fast, right? Like that was a major risk.
Or have
And
someone go innovate your idea before you did it?
right. And that was the other piece is I felt that I have to capture market share now. In order to do that, I need to go forward and make a bet. But I was not willing to bet the health of the company on that. Right. So
Right.
and part of that's why I raised the amount that I did. I just, sold 10%.
Yeah, I mean, we were developing the same the same product without knowing at
Yeah.
the same time, and then instead of competing against each other, we found a way to create a partnership there to where you
Yeah.
could get what you need to get. We could kind of have this thing that we each have, and then both do it in our own ways. And that's what's so fun about
Yeah.
masterminds and people that want to collaborate. And full disclosure, I have invested in her company as well, so I do put my money where my mouth is as well, to where I was like, I think she has something here. And we kind of drive in two different lanes. They have some overlap, but more or less it's us being more of a data provider than a competitor to you in any way. Our SMB product, I wouldn't really I don't hear Left Main versus batch whatever ever. So that's never been a problem. And being a partner to you and servicing you as we continue to innovate on the machine learning side, giving you guys access to that, and then you guys creating your derivative product on top of that is what's exciting. And I
It's
think
so
it's pretty fun
exciting.
to do it.
Yeah, I think that's been the best part of this, this journey is the level of collaboration that happens. Uh,
Hmm.
it's rocket fuel for sure to find amazing partners and to work together on product and people who get it. Yeah, it's been fun. Your team is awesome.
Thank you. I'll actually talk about the bootstrap side, because
Yeah,
I didn't know that you were bootstrapped for that long. So I think we have similar journeys. So good to understand why you went that route. But the thing that I've always seen a lot of bootstrap companies, and I the benefit to me is like me, Annie and Eva own the business. I could do in not so nice French whatever the fuck we want to, and we don't have to report to anyone
yeah,
ever, ever. And we go and do it our way. We do it what it's we live and die by our own swords. You know what I mean? We make a bad decision, we feel it. Make a good decision, we feel it as well. But the one thing that I've always like been envious to some degree is having those investment bankers or those angel people, and just building that network even further, of having more people there to give you relationships or sales, that doors that you may not have been able to, that we may not be able to get into. And someone has put in a significant amount of money, let's say to your business, to see it succeed. They don't want to see it fail. So they're, having someone else really have your back that necessarily doesn't run the day to day is definitely a benefit. Obviously, you need to find the right partner. There's a lot of people that you could raise for, and two, I would be very strategic. I know that you were very strategic, definitely on that second round that you did, or whatever you call it, because you necessarily didn't need the money. But I think maybe some of the things I'm talking about is what you saw with this private equity firm, and I think that might be a huge contributor of why you're doing it.
1,000%. Just like us, right? We meet. You have some kind of like vision chemistry, and you're like, I think we can help each other. I think we can do something together. It's the same thing with the right venture partner, the right private equity partner. I think it's harder to find because there's a lot of snakes, and there's a lot of people who are Ivy League grown and know how to run a business on paper, but don't know how to do it, in day to day. And so it's really difficult to find the right partner. So it's, I think, a little like matchmaking, but that's why I did it, because these doors are open. They want to help. They're the right partner. And now we can get bigger, and the vision can grow, and the execution can grow as a whole. And they're great. So, anything could happen, I guess. It's a relationship just like anything else. You're not guaranteed no one's going to screw each other over, but
Right.
I think it's the right partner is 100% worth the risk.
For sure. No, I couldn't agree more. So I want to move on to something else I think is really important. And I want to talk about building out like an executive team. Let's talk about building that out. When you start building that out, when you're first getting started, because we both grew quickly, so we had money to spend quickly to hire people. And then I also want to talk about, for at least my experience,
Yeah.
that I've actually had 3 iterations of having to kind of backfill that team as we've grown to different levels and outgrown people in certain leadership spots. Luckily, some have been able to stay and understand that they weren't that person to get us to the next level. And some people's egos were too big to where they, didn't see it the same way we did. And, they left amicably, which is nice. But, I would love to hear kind of your experience, and then I'll elaborate on mine a little bit.
Yeah. I made a lot of mistakes, and really in both companies too, and trying to figure out how to grow a leadership team. I don't think you get it right the first time, which sucks, even though you're like, I'm going to try my best. When we first started, I was more concerned about people who could do the job, like who could do the task.
Yeah.
And it took me a couple of years to realize, first of all, that was even how I was looking at it, and that was so wrong. I need people who can help me build this thing, not just who can do that one job or can do the task. I needed the dream team, So the first iteration of people that we hired were the one, like, we were so busy, it's growing so fast, we just need to like get the job done, And so it came from a place of like, we got to fill these orders, we got to do this. And then when we grow and we stabilize, those people couldn't go anywhere. Like they couldn't go up. We couldn't get ahead of the ball, right? Because they just knew how to do the task or do that job. They had the experience to see forward and to build process along the way. So, as I haven't turned over our full leadership team, thank God, but I have turned over our COO. And got the right person on a trust standpoint, but also on a growth standpoint, on a team standpoint, where do we need to go? From the sales team, getting the right executive on staff was really hard too. We went through a couple iterations where, like, sales manager, et cetera, and trying to figure out who understands the space, can do the job, but can also grow. I think we have the right person in the right seat now. Thankfully, on the CTO side and the experience side, I kind of had a little hack that worked out really well. Last year, a little over a year ago now, I started a advisory board, like just crazy cool people. I'm like, hey, I'll give you a thousand shares in the company a month if you would meet with me for an hour, right? Like just come hang out with me. I'll pay you in shares to just talk to me about being a business owner and like how you did these things, right? And so I set out to find the person I would be like blown away to get a meeting with, right? Holy crap, I got a meeting with them. And then they agreed to be an advisor. And so two of my current leadership teams were those people. So they were advisors first, and we got to know each other, and they got to understand the vision of what we're growing. And it was a very natural thing where they were like, hey, I think we can do something more together. Like,
That's cool.
and it was like, oh, I think this is compatible. And that was a really great kind of like dating way, right? Like they had a ton of value to add. So no matter what, it's a net positive. But then they also understood the vision then, right? And they had all this crazy cool experience, and they felt really confident they could bring value to the table. And so did I, because I've been working with them on this
Hmm.
advisor level. So that was a really cool hack slash
That's pretty
act.
cool. I hope you're not doing the same to me because I don't know if you could recruit me away.
And before you know it, you'd be like, Left Main, coming on. No, that was not on. It was not on purpose at all. But it happened with two people, which was really cool.
That's
But
awesome.
I think that was nice. So I'd recommend either getting exposure to people like that to see if like to have some sort of dating. I think it's really hard just to hire out of the gate, and it's almost like a longer recruiting, uh,
So
or something
yeah,
more.
I agree with everything, but let me take it a step further. Is I think at the beginning, um, so at the beginning, I just think after experiencing once, you could experience again. But understanding that like the task takers and you don't have this huge budget is I actually think those are the people that you're supposed to hire. It's just don't hire them with titles that they don't need or don't deserve. And explain that to them. Be like, hey, you're going to be very important for us to get to $1 million a month in revenue, but understand that we're going to have to hire someone to mentor you to help to get you to the next level. So it's like, how do you frame it? How do you hire it? Because some of those people that we ended up not being to keep was one, I just didn't know what I didn't know. But two, if I were to do it all over again, I'd set those proper expectations of like, hey, you're going to be a part of the ground floor. You're going to be able to kick ass. You're going to be able to learn all this cool stuff. But we're going to have to hire someone because I don't know how to do it. And I know you don't either to get to this next hurdle. And I think if it's positioned properly as you're starting a new business, it was just mine and yours first software business. So we had no fucking clue what we're doing.
Right?
But now that I do know that, so for you people that are getting started or, at the, less than maybe $500,000 is you're going to have to hire someone else to help you get to that next level because they've already experienced that. Unless there's some people that are incredibly talented. So there's always exceptions, but most of the time that it's what it's going to be like. And then same for you, Steph. Luckily my chief product and CTO, they've like Evo nailed that at the
Yeah.
beginning. Still have them. They're still brilliant, but sales and marketing that, and HR and finance, actually all of those,
Yeah.
we had to cycle through a couple times as growing pains happened and gained. And luckily HR is, we actually hired her at the very beginning and she actually was more valuable than like gosh, I don't remember what the job, he was like the VP of, human resources or whatever you want to call it. She was more talented than he was. So we're like, all right, you got to go, bro. Like she's like, we got the reassurance that like, she's the one
Yeah.
because she understood the culture better. She understood the business better. And she was the one driving projects. He had just always worked for these big corporations and kind of just like did it this one way when like, hey man, we're bootstrapped. Like you can't go to India with the whole team and spend, $150,000, like find a more creative way
Right.
to make everyone feel a part of the team. And that was fun. Is some of it was internally being like, they are the person. And the other times it was, okay, I wish I would have talked about to these people what I just spoke to you about, is letting them know that like, hey, this is a great experience. But if you want to continue to grow and get that experience and learn and be mentored by someone to potentially have their job, and it may not be with us in the future, this may be their job, but still being able to keep them on and have them bought in, and grow that person to where now they're ready to take on this bigger role and have the proper experience instead of like the title experience and then go get set up for failure at a larger organization or, like a publicly traded company. But those were some of like my big my big learning lessons on that
That's a
side.
really big lesson and a great piece of advice. And you gave me that advice too. Like, be really careful with titles, because if
Yeah.
you hire a VP and you want to top them, just like you said, and maybe you don't want to let them go or whatever, but now you got to top them. You got to hire a director now, right? And then that director, we may not need a director or a president or something, you know what I mean, or a chief. And
Yeah. I mean, we threw around chief and VP and director titles when
yeah,
someone wasn't even a manager yet. So it's like, hey, it starts as a manager. Like, do you have ICs that you're managing? And if you have multiple managers, then you need a director to manage those managers. If you're a
right,
small organization, it's okay for someone to be a senior manager. Like my sister, for example, had a director title and I took it away from her. I'm like, you're not a director. What managers are you managing? Well, I want the title. But that's not what you're doing. If you go somewhere else, you don't have this experience managing managers. So like, why are you a director?
right.
You shouldn't be. Like, it's okay to be that, but like, don't get a title or need a title of something that you're not actually doing, because it's going to make you look bad if you go and try and find another job. It's not the proper experience. You don't actually have it. You could. It's just, it's egos and people, but sometimes we'll cave into someone's managing a person or two and they want to be a director, and it's just like, but they have that talent or they've had that position in the past at another big company. Sometimes you need to give that to them because they can't take a lesser role. So there is circumstances of when that
There's a
happens.
recruiting strategy there, right? Like, come here and get this title, and you know.
But that's a mistake most of the time,
I
to be
agree.
honest with you.
I agree. Yeah, and I think you can get wrapped up in that. Come here, we're going to grow. We're going to grow. You're going to be incredible, and then you better be damn sure that they can do it, right?
For sure. I couldn't agree more. Okay, let's get on to the next topic. I think this would be a good one for both of us to talk about. I have a lot of questions to choose from. I'm thinking of the vibe here. Okay, I think this is a great one to kind of talk about. Some of the things I want to go over is, how has your business changed in the last 3 years? I'll have you go first too.
Ooh, you make me go first. All these questions.
I can answer this one. I'll answer this one too.
Okay.
Is I'll start. Then it could give you a few minutes to kind of percolate on
Like,
the idea.
yeah.
Our business has changed a ton, especially being in the real estate space with the interest rates raising. Text messaging and cold texting was a huge part of batch leads and drove us a ton of revenue 3 years ago. Now, that has cracked down. You're not supposed to be doing that. And that was a huge pivot I'm going to talk about in a little bit. But we really had to change from, just being someone that provided a resource for you to text and call out of, to really be innovative with our list, our data, our workflows for our customers, how people, how the machine learning and how we have algorithms now to, like, we have this amazing algorithm that is like, someone literally clicks a button in a zip code they want to be in, and we're going to tell you the most likely to sell homes, because we've had machine learning in the background for years, testing and building and creating an algorithm and following all these properties that we see and don't see and looking at the attributes. And, in today's world, someone wants to make the calls and do the marketing. And with data and where it's gotten to, I think it's huge to where us really leaning into, like, let us do the heavy lifting and let you do the marketing strategies. And I think that's been, a huge focus on real estate investors and even agents on, how they want, they're lazy inherently, and they want it to be as simple as possible. And as a service provider, our job is to innovate ways to do that. So that's another big change of how our business has kind of evolved. And then the last one is, our big focus was batch leads, batch dialer, batch skip tracing, which are all, small business or for real estate investors or agents. And we've created a couple of years ago Batch Data, which is a big data company. Think of Atom Data, CoreLogic, Black Knight. How can we create all this awesome stuff we've created? How can we sell that to someone like Stephanie or another SaaS provider or data curator, or someone that's, giving things to the customers in this space? And that company has been incredible growth, where we've grown hundreds of percents year over year. And I'm passionate about helping and learning from you guys and from your business, to where you guys are giving us ideas of how we could be creative and how it keeps us on the pulse, I guess. Not only talking to our customers on where we want our product roadmap to go, but talking to now our customers that service adjacent customers, and what are they looking for, and what kind of trends are we seeing overlapping, because we don't have the same product, but we have a lot of the same customer.
Right.
And that's been fun for me. And the B2B go to market in motion is so different than, someone hearing from an affiliate and going and signing up for $100 a month. Like, I'm putting a contract in front of you or someone like you for $100,000 to $250,000 a year. We really have to understand what you're doing, what you're trying to accomplish, and how we're the solution for you, and show you that we believe we're better than, the other competitors in that specific space. So that's really our last 3 years we have totally changed as an organization and where our focuses have been. So that's kind of where we're at.
So I don't think that we've had as much of a change as far as like product goes and product focus, but we have had to innovate also because the real estate space has changed, and the way that investors are looking at product and what they want to use and what they can afford to use changed. Back in 2020 and 2021, especially, pocketbooks are a little loose, right? Like, you'll try it, but now
for sure.
So what we've really changed our focus on is our delivery of time to customer value. So when you buy our product, how quickly do you as a customer see that ROI? And so with that focus changed how we look at our product itself. Like, how can we streamline this thing? How can we make this easier? How can we make this more intuitive? Where are our customers engaging with our product? What are they not engaging with? We did a lot of really deep customer engagement monitoring.
We do the same. I was gonna talk about that. Save that for a little bit later.
Okay,
we're gonna talk about that.
So critical, and have more customer feedback drive what it is that we're doing. It's important. As much as I have an opinion and I have my own pain as a customer myself. Now we have this opportunity of thousands of people giving us feedback and trying to pick and discern really what is needed to make things more valuable to the customer, right? We're charging the same amount per user license. How can we deliver more and more value? And that's what drove us developing a new product line. So that's changed, in the last year or so. We have this new product line, and like machine learning, AI, leveraging to create, incredible models and predictions, et cetera. Like that, now's the time to do that. And I think you as a consumer, if you're not adapting tools like that, your business is going to change. You're dead. And if you as a product developer and a SaaS company aren't finding ways to leverage that, you're dead. So big focus. But I think you have to do it with intention. And our intention is time to customer value. Like, I want you to be able to buy this thing and friggin' nail it and triple your ROI in the month from buying the product, right? How can we make this thing so brainless of a decision to buy? And then secondarily, how can you grow? That was another really big metric that we've been focusing on last year, is just customer growth. So are you successful with the product? Are you adding more users? If you're adding more users, for us, it means your team is growing, your company is growing, your company is probably more profitable and more successful. Are you engaging with other product lines because we've developed the trust in the existing product line, right? And so, customer value and customer growth have been big focuses. And I think we've matured a lot as a company because of that, and put out a lot higher quality stuff.
Yeah. And that's something else that we're excited about. We really focused on user acquisition growth. Obviously that's always going to be a staple,
right?
But we're actually going to create on some additional subscriptions with some really good go-to-market tools. Back to your point of people that have adopted it and that love, are raving fans, as we would say.
Yep.
They want to spend more money with us, and they want us to be innovative with our products. So we're actually, over these next couple quarters, coming on with some additional subscriptions as well, to help them get more efficient, inside of batch leads. And we're very excited to create these offerings for them. And one, it gets our lifetime value of the customer up. But like, at the end of the day, like that's a metric that we look at. I'm kind of old school like you, to where that's so important to look at. But at the same time, like, I'm not just trying to make more money. Obviously, we have to charge for the services that we build. They're expensive. But like, us showing that they're spending more money with us also shows that they're making a bunch more money because of what we're giving them. And that's what makes me excited. At the end of the day, you're giving us a little bag of money so you could go make a big bag of money. And if our if our product is really helping you be successful there, they're going to continue, to keep working with us. And that's what's really important. But let's shift, because you gave me a perfect segue of how do you balance. So it's a little bit different for me now than it is for you now, profitability versus growth, because you do have raised some money and you do have some different levers you could pull. But for us, when that market shifted, it was tough on us, because we were very profitable and, up through 2022. And we never had to worry about, what we wanted to build. Is just like, are we building the right thing? Because we just had a ton of developers, a ton of resources to, like, each quarter we're like, okay, what cool thing are we doing now? And how's it going to help us grow? That definitely shifted to where it's like, okay, now we don't have as many resources. What is the best and highest value of our engineers and product team's time to make sure that the customers are seeing the value in our product? And that's kind of how we got to adding these. We could grow our revenue without growing our user base. That's really important, because there isn't a huge user base growth with these high interest rates and the lack of inventory exchanging hands. So how can we still be successful without having to have, huge organic growth? And that's kind of like where we went to. So our growth versus profitability is like, what is one, define growth? So growth, we're talking more about monetary growth than just customer growth. Yeah. That was something that we kind of realigned the entire team on. Not saying that we don't want as much, growth as we can customer acquisition wise, but let's focus on that, and then be very intentional with what we're building, why we're building it, and how can it create, more revenue for the company. And that's kind of where we've really shifted this last year for at least our SMB products. On our B2B side, it's just how can more people know about us? Because that's been growing like crazy. But the SMB, or the, real estate investor product line, yeah, people do know about us. And at that point, it's, how can we be more successful, more profitable on that side? Because that side, those products generate 80% of the revenue. So just because this one side's growing a bunch doesn't mean for our whole product suite that it's really making a dent, because it's not.
Yeah. I agree. I think you have to look at customer, company growth on an MRR or an ARR standpoint. And not just a logo, like how many new customers you bring on. Because if your MRR, your monthly recurring is growing, that also means that you're retaining people, and that you are bringing on new people, or the people are growing on your platform. So I think that's definitely the truest form. And I think it's really hard to decide what to build. Like,
It is.
I think it's really hard. And, there's bugs and stuff you always got to take care of. And you probably always have some sort of degree of tech debt that you've got to catch up with release.
Always.
Tackle. But, I think it's really easy. I was actually talking to another founder about this too. I think it's really easy to get trapped in customer feedback from a feature standpoint. Like, wouldn't it be cool if we had this bell or whistle and this and that? And it is, like, those are cool things, but you can't just push out features. I think you have to push out, like, solutions for customer problems. So you're asking for this feature because you want what? Like, what is that resulting in, right? And then that's what you solve for.
A lot of the time, when we're sending out these surveys, they're not really critically thinking of, like, what would be impactful from this product. They're just saying, this is something I want because it would be nice. Now, if you have hundreds of people, when you have 1,000 people raising their hand saying the same thing, then you're like, okay, I need to build this. But a lot of the time, like our chief product officer, he's like, what are they trying to accomplish?
Right.
And, is it more important than the stuff that we've been critically thinking about over the last 6 months for our customer base as a whole? And I think that's something that we got good at. It's something that was tough for, like, our community manager, our product marketing team, because they're in there all the time. And we're like, well, is it more important than these things? And why go back to this person, call them. Why, what are they trying to accomplish from this feature? And that's kind of battle that we have with some of the team, because, like, I'm trying to get as many people on our team to really think big picture. And when we're creating our product roadmap for the next 3, 6, 9, 12 months, which we have, we bring in all the way down to individual contributors and say, here's the crazy stuff that we thought of. what aren't we thinking of, or what's more important? And we go all the way down. We have sales reps in those meetings because they are the ones actually talking
Yeah.
every day to customers, selling them, and also losing those customers for certain reasons. So
Right.
Our sales reps, once we brought them into like really our product roadmap discussion, it was very helpful on really identifying where we should and shouldn't work on things. Because sometimes at the executive level, you're making assumptions and you're not in the weeds as much as they are. And I think people underestimate the experience of a great sales team and a great, community team that are talking to the customers much more than we are.
Oh, it's critical, right? And to speak to the sales point, those are the people who are getting objections, right?
Correct.
And they're getting objections because they don't see the bridge to solving their problem. That customer problem that they're having. So we can do that with product, and I think that's the right way to frame it. But it does cause internal frustration, I think, for product teams and for technical teams, because they'll want certain features, right? And like, something has to be a priority. How are you going to choose the priority? And in my opinion, if we get down to the root reason why somebody wants a feature and we can solve for a customer problem, I'm so willing to make that investment because I know it's going to result in revenue. Just because
For sure.
you move the button from there to there, and we spend the couple $1,000s, we're never going to see an extra dollar for that. But if we
Right.
continue to drive value to the customer, then obviously we will. And there's still a balance because sometimes buttons look stupid and they shouldn't be there.
That's true. That's true.
But I think that's the right measuring stick, and that's probably part of the roller coaster, right? Because when you first release, like, you got bugs, you got features, you got all this crap you got to catch up with, and then you can't get stuck in that. You got to then to continue the growth, you got to go back to the problems. So I'm sure you felt that roller coaster. I know we did.
Absolutely. All right, let's talk data, but let's talk data inside our businesses, not the data that we give to our customers. So, what proprietary, or I guess what things have you created? I'll start so I could give like an example of, because it's kind of a weird question. Is like, for example, like, we build out a lot of data sets for our customer journey and where the touch points are, and open rates and click throughs and so on and so forth. But on the product side, we built out a lot of Tableau and Databricks reporting to where they talk to each other of product usage. And so like when we do develop a new feature or new product, like is that it's actually a multitude of things. Like, do we go to market right with it properly to make sure that our customers know that we have this new thing?
Yep.
And then if people do know we have it, paid versus unpaid, we try our best to set a metric of if we do something on product, what are we measuring it against? What means successful, what means failure, and where did it succeed and where did it fail? So like we've built out a very robust way to make sure, like for us, the number one adoption thing is, is lists, people, pulling the list.
Mm-hmm.
If someone comes in and they're not pulling lists, they're going to churn like automatically. And how much are they pulling a new customer? How much are they doing? How much do they actually need? And then, if they're doing a multitude of things, how more likely are they to stay for longer? And then that's where we could create our onboardings to help people be more successful. How can we, create that user journey inside, with pop-ups, with the Pendo guides and stuff that we have there. And that's where we really use like a lot of our data for, the customer and the journey, is really understanding like where are they using it, where are they not using it? And if they're not using it, make some assumptions of why they aren't. Like we literally pay people to go get onboarded. We pay them $50 to go get onboarded because we know the power of our product. And once they see it and know how to properly use it, they're going to stay longer. And that was Annie going like, hey, like people cancel 70% more if they don't do an onboarding within the first 60 days. How much is that worth? And then how do we incentivize them to get there? And, it costs a lot less money to keep a customer than to keep attaining new ones. So that's an example kind of how we use, data inside our, internal business to try and be more successful and help customers more.
Yeah, we do the same thing. So almost, very, very similar. So we have an API that's embedded in our product that counts, user
Same.
activities essentially. So
Yep. Hmm.
Number one, like you said, list pulling for you. Our number one is transactions created. So if you are doing deals, then then you're getting value from the platform, right? It's like a super easy way of saying it. If something's
Hmm.
happening, and we have these flags and customer health scores. So if you've gone
Right.
more than 30 days and you haven't done a deal, our team is going to be reaching out to you. How's it going? Are you okay? Do you need help? Are you marketing? What's going on, right? Do you need resources from us? And we have some subject matter experts on the team. I'm happy to jump on calls with people if they need help coaching or whatever, so that we can make sure that their business is healthy. And that's one. So that's a big one. Is this transaction? And then we have some like yellow ones, which is the number of um, the number of text messages or emails are being sent through the platform, tasks are being done, records are being updated,
Yeah.
logins, etc. If you're using the platform, you're getting value out of it. If you're not,
Yeah. I mean, the most important one is logging in. Like,
if you're not logging,
if they haven't logged in 2 weeks, you're like,
yeah,
what's going on?
yeah.
I really hope you're on vacation right now,
But
or your whole team's on vacation.
right, but the login thing is kind of interesting too. So we look at monthly active users versus daily active users, like what percentage of people that
Yeah.
have a user license are logging in every single day. And that helps us determine if that customer is a healthy customer or not. Because
Hmm.
we're the lifeline. If you're not engaging with
Yeah, you're the CRM. You're literally like, people
yeah,
should be in there. People that have seats, but not everyone
right,
that has a seat is going to be in there every day because they're maybe doing specific
true,
tasks.
true.
So
Or maybe people have downsized their team, right? And then that's
correct.
gonna drop. Your daily active users are gonna drop versus what you
True.
have a month. So that's been a cool metric to track. And when we I think what we've seen really successfully is being proactive, like you said, with onboarding, right? When we're proactive like that, people want to know that you care, that you notice them too. But we've been able to be proactive and just really engage on a deeper level with our customers. So we have onboarding too when they buy our product, and then we have customer success. We have a human being that you can call and ask a question to, and you can have most people have monthly calls, check in, like a vendor check in. How is the company doing? What are your needs? And sometimes it's like, hey, I need help with a skip trace. Oh, good, cool. Call Batch. They're awesome. It's maybe not even us that's providing the service, but we're
Right.
industry experts too, so we can help them, and that creates a ton of value. And if
Hmm.
their company is healthy, they're going to use our product, right? So that engagement piece, I can't speak highly enough about it. I think it's super important once you get proof of concept. Like you better go all into that because it keeps people on platform.
For sure. I couldn't agree more. So this one you get to answer first, so kind of putting you on the spot.
Okay.
But I think this is a great question because we all have these, and I think they're funny stories to tell. It's like, give me an example of when you felt like a complete failure inside your business, but ultimately it turned into driving your business in a direction of actual success. It may not have just happened at the beginning.
Oh my gosh. Probably I have hundreds of examples if I had enough time to think about it. I think probably the most impactful one was the very first time I had a customer cancellation. That's
Okay.
like having to have that conversation. Like, why? Why are you leaving? Right? Especially when we were, at the beginning, when we
Hmm.
didn't have a ton of customers, and like I had a personal involvement, right? I knew every single person that had bought, and they left. I felt personally rejected. I felt like professionally rejected, and I had to have that conversation. Like, well, why? Why did you make that decision, right? And get that kind of hard truth of, you know, things that are difficult about the product, things that are good about the product but not good enough, and what's happening in their business, how much value did it provide them, or whatever, right? And getting the harshest feedback from somebody who left, right? That made me feel like a horrible failure, but it ended up informing what we did with the product and looking at it from a different way, right? Like, okay, the harsh truth is really great feedback, no matter
I
what.
agree.
And all publicity is good publicity. All feedback is good feedback. You got to do something with it. And it was a little bit of a gut check too, because when I launched Left Main, I really cared, right? And I still really care, but I was like, this is my baby. What if someone says my baby's ugly? I'm gonna take it personal, right? And I
You
know,
can't. But yeah, at the beginning,
right?
you take it personal, and at the end of the day, some people you can't create something that fits all needs. And
Look at
some people are going to build different products that may fit someone's need.
right. I mean, look at Apple versus Android. People will go to war over which one's better. They're both amazing products, right?
Right.
And same thing with like CVS and Walgreens. They'll be on the same dang intersection. Both of them are doing great, but people have a preference of one versus the other, even though, they can both
Hmm.
be correct and someone can have a negative feeling about one thing. So I had to really, thicken my skin about that in the beginning and like learn real quick that I'm going to take that. I can't take it personal. We're going to make it better. Everything you say, I'm going to listen to. And it's still to this day, all customer feedback, good or bad. Obviously, we all want more good feedback, but it has informed our product. And I think it's made us a billion times better. And I honestly can't even recognize our company today as it was 5 years ago.
Yeah. And I'd say for us, the failure of batch data, our enterprise product, the first 2 years we launched it, we had such easy success with, just, going into the real estate investor agent home service space and just create something, bunch of customers, bunch of value. We did absolutely fantastic. And, going into that B2B world, we were, I wouldn't say arrogant, but confident in figuring it, just being able to figure it out like we had with everything else. And that was not the case. I don't think we hired the right people to help advise us on. It's just so different than what we'd already done, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And I lost money on that business for almost 3 years, and I'm talking millions of dollars a year. And I felt like a failure in multiple ways. Is we couldn't get the product market fit. So like our data was great, but how we packaged it and offered it was very poor compared to our competitors. The sales process was not great, and our pricing and packaging and what people were offering versus what we were and how we were doing it in that space, you just come with your best foot forward. The sales leader at the time he came from a really big B2B world where it's like, hey, I want to anchor, I want to do this, I want to do that, and then we finally got to a place is like, let's make business easy, because everyone in this world or in the prop tech space, it's like, hey, this is what we charge, and like there's not a huge like the negotiating is really on like terms. So like if you want to prepay, you get a little discount, or you want this or you want that. Now that there's getting to be some derivative products, there's a little bit more there to where it's just not a commodity anymore, and that's something that we're leaning into. But at first, wrong sales leader, wrong marketing people. We had to replace those. So that kind of goes back to our conversation earlier a little bit,
Yeah.
and just knowing that it's much slower build. You're not going to just get millions of customers, and when people are spending hundreds of thousands of dollars, your brand awareness matters. It was just so different, and I mean, I felt like a complete idiot. I felt it was hard because we hadn't failed, and when you just keep winning at a lot of things, you just assume you're going to keep winning, and it was a huge slap in the face. Be like, hey bud, you got a lot more to learn, and you got a lot of work to do if you want this side of the business to be successful. And that's why you saw me excited and so proud, because that was a really long journey to even get to where we're at today. And as I said, it still doesn't even make up a significant amount of our revenue, but I know in 2 years it will.
Yeah.
And I know that we have the right people in place, and we're servicing the right clients. So
Yeah.
that was definitely one of those lessons to where it felt like, I mean, we were close to pulling the plug at one point, because I didn't know what to do anymore. And luckily we persevered and just continued to truck along. But that was tough when you're just robbing your other businesses to see something constantly burn up money. And we didn't raise money. So that's me, Ian, and Evo just burning up money, losing like our profits from stuff that we've worked very hard on, on something we weren't doing very good at. So it was tough. It was really tough.
I think it's just the poignant lesson in all this is like failure is a part of it, and the solution is to push through it and figure it out one little thing at a time. I think all of us have that lesson of getting slapped in the face of, who anyone who's successful has that story and has multiple stories like that, and how they persevered.
I know everyone like thinks just because you've done pretty well in your business, but they don't understand all the go-to markets that you do on something that you spend a bunch of time creating or building software wise. that people just don't give a shit about. And you're like, whoa, I was wrong. Like, and they're like, man, like, dude, no, it's just like any other business or just getting started. Like, I feel like I get beat up all the time. Like, I'm like certain that this is just going to be revolutionary, and we launch it and people are just like, it's okay. And I'm like, what? I was like, this is awesome. So it's just like, it's not all rainbows and butterflies. Just cause we have, companies that are making millions of dollars, it doesn't mean that we're not massively failing all the time as well. So if you're just getting started in any type of business, just know, like, people are always, making mistakes, and there's always learning lessons around the corner.
I think that's why you got to like listen to stuff like this and get involved with people who are doing what you're doing so that you can normalize it. Because I think I'll speak for myself as a founder. I ask myself a lot, like, is this normal? Is this okay? And and when something goes wrong, you don't think it's normal and you just want to be normal. But the failing is normal. The mistakes are normal. And I think the more you hear that, the more the thicker your skin can be against problems like that, and the more tolerance you have to persevere. So like you said, like you almost quit, you almost stopped that product line, right? Imagine if you did.
We're close,
right?
Yeah, we're really close.
Yeah, so you can't do it, you can't stop.
Last question. I love ending the pod on this is, in this real estate space that, both of us serve the majority of our clients in, what do you think is going to be the most tech disruptive things that are going to be happening? And it doesn't necessarily need to be for stuff that we're building ourselves, but like in the real estate space, what do you think is going to be the most disruptive tech? And I guess I want to know, to some degree, how is your company going to, be a part of that?
So I think AI, this is the buzzword, AI for sure. But I think in a way bigger than just machine learning. I think machine learning is a big part of it. But I think because it's growing so fast, I think the way people interact with technology is going to change completely. I think I was telling someone the other day, I think in a few years, I would not be surprised in 3 to 5 years if we don't even have keyboards, that we're just talking to technology like we do to our Alexa, right? Like, hey, Alexa, what's this? And that's how we interact with our computers now, right? Or our glasses that we're wearing, like these meta things, right? Like, hey, show me what
right.
is, right? So I think the way that we interact is going to change from our traditional sense of like point and click and querying with keyboard, stuff. I think a lot of it's going to be voice related, and it has to be even simpler where you could click for, to get what you want instead of searching and scrolling and all this stuff. I think it's going to be simplified to a pretty serious degree. So in thinking about the whole interface of technology changing, that means that our product has to be easier, right? Otherwise, you can't. If I have to go scroll through tables to try to figure out where the data lives in my system, it's not gonna be compatible 3, 4, 8 years from now, right? So I think that your user interface has got to be able to be moldable, and then also on as far as the back end on product, you better have a great data play, because none of that crap makes sense. You can't use machine learning, you can't use LLMs if you don't have a great database and a good data model that you can query against with voice and using large language. So you got to have a centralized place where this stuff lives that you can then query in a more simple user interface, right? With like language. Yep. So long-winded answer, but I think there's going to be some pretty cool disruption with how we interact with tech.
So I actually agree, and I want to kind of add to what you're saying to some degree. I think God, I'm trying to figure out how to word this properly. With workflows, I think APIs are going to get much simpler to use, to where there's going to be very simple APIs for. You don't need a developer. Let's say it could be for your CRM, it could be for a workflow. Like, that's something we're really going to lean into, is how can we create very simple APIs to solve complex problems for our customers, not just in batch leads, but on the batch data side as well. And then, as you're saying, having these, properly, I guess, infrastructured big data sets, which luckily we already have because we sell to a lot of companies like yourself. I think, the machine learning, the LLM models, anyone could create the derivative product. Are you creating the derivative products that are going to make the impact? and how creative can you get, and how can you really, really solve a problem. And that's kind of where our focus has leaned into, is, having the machine learning, but instead of just building this machine learning thing, what are we trying to accomplish for the customer, and how do we make it as simple as possible for them to use it? And then how can they customize it with a simple API to integrate into their CRM or into their dialer or into their data set or into whatever. That's really where I see on the data side, is whoever innovates there is going to win. And we have a big bet on the batch data side on that.
Yeah, I made the same bet, right? All in on data so that we can build great AI and great models. And that's the foundation.
I don't even know what models we're going to build, but like, I think the people that build the best and simplest derivative products are going to win.
Yep.
And who could get to market fastest with those, because like I could build a derivative product and it doesn't necessarily need to be for just data. I mean, it could be for someone that's doing a bunch of lead gen, through PPC, but we're creating these workflows through an API and through machine learning of like every single, let's say Doug Hawkins, for example, runs $200,000 a month on PPC ad campaigns. Every little property every property or homeowner that comes through, I could score that with a proprietary algorithm to him on the workflow. I'm just giving an example, just some crazy idea, but like, what's this crazy idea that solves a problem for a ton of people to give them better insights on, what properties they're actually going to buy and where their sales reps should spend their time.
That's it. And at the end of the day, that's what the limiting factor is time. So how much can we do? How much can we automate it? How much can we scale with time?
I love it. All right. I love ending with that question because it kind of talks about the future, talks about where we're going. Yeah. I guess any last thoughts? I always like to end for you to talk about, last thoughts for, I don't necessarily think it needs to be SaaS. I like to say for, a founder, and it could be advice for someone getting started, someone where you're at, or someone, at any level. But what's like advice that you really love, to give, or something that you think that you have special insight to where, someone would be like, damn, Stephanie's dope. That's good advice.
Well, you better know that by now already, by the end of this podcast. No, I'm really bullish on the real estate investment space. I think that products for real estate investors are really important. 1 in 3 single family houses are bought by an investor. I think the space is growing. I think regular traditional residential real estate is dying. So I'm very pumped about what we're doing here in this space. And I love that you have a dedicated podcast for it. PropTech is freaking awesome. But, kind of on a broader sense, just from founder to founder, I think, don't underestimate your own pain and what you can create for solutions around that. I think there's a lot of opportunities, and the difficulties that you have in your everyday life, in your other company that you're running, can be a really impactful product. So don't underestimate that and your ability to create a solution for a customer problem. I think everything should be centered around those problems. And yeah, there's a lot of ways to make things work here. So, but the real estate space is where it's at.
And then if someone is inspired by Stephanie and this amazing podcast we just did, how would they get a hold of you?
You can find me on social at Steph Betters is my handle. You can check out Left Main, leftmainrei.com. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on all the interwebs.
On all the places. And yeah. I always like to end with a little piece of advice too. I try and give something different every time. But something that I've really learned, especially when we've been in 2 different markets since I founded Batch Service. And when you're doing really good, you're not as good as you think you are. And when it feels really bad and the pain's there, you're actually not doing as bad as you think you are. Sometimes it's market conditions on both sides of things. And sometimes you just have to weather storms. But it is tough when you've seen a ton of success and it changes. And that may not be to something that you could control. So stay a little bit more level. Your good isn't as good. You're not as good as you think you are, and you're not as bad as you think you are either. But I think sometimes people get really caught up on both sides of those things. And I've got to experience both of that. Is, looking back on the last 2 years, it's been tough, but I think me and my two partners probably beat ourselves up more than we should have, because I think it was tough on everyone, and surviving and still being profitable is something to be very proud of.
Yes.
And when we thought we were the shit, we probably weren't as good as we thought we were either. So it's just, that's some advice that I could give you from doing over $150 million in sales in 6 years. I've had a roller coaster to go on. So I think that will wrap it up. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Real SaaS Podcast. You could find the podcast on my YouTube channel, Jesse Burrell. And if you're interested in any of our products, check out batchservice.com. And until next time, let's get it.